Hello, and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses for episode 7 of Fox's Den. I cannot believe it's been 7 weeks of Fox's Den already. Some familiar faces on screen. We've got Anil, who was just on time. He's been very busy this afternoon or this evening, so got in just on time. How you doing, mate?
I'll run off my socks, honestly. I'm having quite long days recently, but it's all good. I'll tell you all about it in the future one day. But yeah, thanks for having me, Locks. Always a pleasure to be here. Star-studded panel tonight, I can see.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Right, let's move on to Josh Sports. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, all good, lads. Good to be back for another week. Finally, we can look forward to a game, I guess, now.
Yeah, 100%. And Ragsy, mate, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm all good, man. I'm all good, lads. How are we all? And honestly, these staggered international breaks, I'm just like, I think the first week I was like, in the first week, just after we broke off from the football and stuff, and you're like, okay, you need a bit of relief from Cooper Ball. And then the second week, you're like, nah, just need it back. And I think giving back on Saturday.
That's it, man. That's it. International break is grim. But as everyone just said, we are back. We're back in town. Just to bring some comments up on screen before we start. Kunal is here. Evening to you, mate. Hope you're doing well. Clibbo is here watching over on For Fox's Sake TV. Dawn is here. Evening, guys. Good evening to Zaid. Possible El Sakiko this weekend. We'll talk about that. Being another in a few weeks, 100%. And Arthur again, just like Dawn, who is a channel member on Blue Tinted Glass. Thanks for your support. Evening to you, mate, as well. And the final whistle as well. Evening to Jack. So, right, we don't really need to review any game. We don't need to touch on any game because there hasn't been one. So we can go straight into Southampton. I know on this channel, especially, I've been speaking so much about the upcoming games. I was on Josh's channel as well yesterday, so you can go and check out that as well later on. But I'll come to you first, Josh, since we spoke last night. Southampton, is it I keep seeing people say a 6-pointer, and it always feels wrong calling the game a 6-pointer in like October. But, you know, with the situation, is it a 6-pointer?
Just about. I think if we didn't beat Bournemouth 100%, it would be for our case. Southampton, obviously, they have to win it. But yeah, I think, you know, we've got over the line now, which is the main thing. We've got that first one on the board. But yeah, I won't say it's a definite 6-pointer, but there's no getting away from the fact that it's another massive game. Ipswich got Everton as well. So, it's a big week, isn't it?
It's absolutely massive. And Neil, I'll come to you, mate. I mean, you know, on paper, I keep saying this, on paper, the worst team in the league, in my opinion. Statistically, I think probably the worst team in the league as well. Does that mean we're going to win? Does that mean we have to win, should we say? Does that mean we have to win?
Well, we'd all be disappointed if we didn't, because I think if you can't win games like this, you do kind of lose hope. That's why that Everton game for me was like really disappointing that we weren't going for it. It's like, Steve, I mean, what teams do you think we actually can beat if you're not going for it against Everton? Like, you're not going to be able to attack Man City with 10 minutes to go. You would be lucky to still be in the game. So I think it's important. So look, and also I think we mentioned this a few times, but like compare it to last season when Enzo absolutely took Russell Martin to the cleaners. So I think we're going to learn where we've gone from, because I think we've got a much better squad this season than we did last season. So on paper, we should be able to do better. But will we do that way? I don't know. One thing I will say, though, is that they're under a lot of pressure themselves. They probably really need to turn in a performance. Fair play to Southampton in the biggest game that they've had probably over the last 18 months, which was the playoff final. They turned up and they won it. So I don't think it'll necessarily be a walk in the park, but we have an extremely good record against Southampton recently. Would be disappointed if we don't win. I'm expecting us to win. Let's hope we can.
Yeah, Ragsy, I've just asked the lads there, is it must win? Is it a 6-pointer? What are your thoughts ahead of this one? Is it like, take nothing but 3 points? You're not even happy with the draw here. Does it have to be the win?
That's the expectation, really. That should be on this club. They're, for me, probably the easiest team that we played last season in the Championship, and it will be the easiest team that we're going to play in the Premier League. We've got a really good record going away at St Mary's. Home is a bit different, but not got to that yet. But we're going into a situation with a manager that's on the ropes, and it's been rumored like if he does lose this game, then he's likely to be sacked. So the pressure's sort of piling up onto that game, and we've managed to draft our first win. So even like with all the stipulations and how much like we can sort of sit here and knock our team, like it's really on paper should just be a comfortable victory. Of course, if we're not at it, anything can happen in football. You always got to account for that. But yeah, I think the only reason why is like that we don't win is purely up to us. I think if we're on job and they're on job as well, then we go through because we're just clearly a better team on paper in every position. So
it's really, it's really interesting though that you said they're the easiest team we played last season, because obviously it sounds like a silly comment because it was Southampton who got relegated against the likes of Rotherham and Sheffield Wednesday, but I mean it probably was the easiest two games, wasn't it, Josh? Like we absolutely thumped them both occasions.
Definitely, it was 9-1 on aggregate. Could have been a bit more as well, but yeah, I think playing against them suits us to a T, especially with the players have got. Obviously, that 5-0 pretty much got Leicester promoted in the end, and that was a big game. And we turned up and brushed them aside, and it wasn't really the typical Maresca performance, which just gives me a bit of hope, because obviously it's going to be a similar way which Southampton was set up, you'd assume, under Russell Martin. But yeah, last season, if you look at it on paper, if you look at the scoreline, I think 2 games it probably is the highest margin we beat the team in that league.
Yeah, and that's probably taken into account. I mean, we beat Stoke 5-0, didn't we? And I bet we had a less aggregate score against against them than we did Southampton. There's an interesting comment here, Neil, which I know that you agree with, so I want to come to you on it. I think this is a perfect game for Cooper style. Being fast in transition would hurt Saints a lot, because I think we have singled that out as something to look out for this weekend, that we should try and exploit, with them having a lot of the ball, try and exploit them on the transition. So yeah, what are your thoughts to what Zaid has said?
Well, I'm going to humbly plug my own channel there for Fox's Sake TV, because I've done my Southampton preview, but I've looked at their tactics and the way they do it. But we saw it last season, that was one of the few games we played where the opposition had significantly more possession than us in both games. And yet, what did they do with that possession? They passed it between their inverted fullbacks and did nothing. And then we'd rub the ball off their inverted fullbacks, and on transition, we'd kill them. Mr. Fatal would grab himself a hat-trick in the second game. In the first one, even Ndidi was looking like prime Messi. If you remember, he was doing that goal that even James Maddison went on socials going, "Is that Wilfred Ndidi doing, like Marseille rolls and stuff in the box?" And he was. So it should suit us. And look, I do say this with Steve Cooper, that we are all negative about him, but there are actually some aspects he's done that are actually quite good. And I think what is good is that we are actually one of the faster vertical transition teams in the league this season. And we're also competitive and good at winning the challenges. So on paper, if we do that at the right times in the right areas, we should be able to get away with it. I'm expecting to see the game, providing they don't spring a surprise, which we could maybe talk about in a minute. But if they play their quote unquote usual system, I think they will have a lot of the ball, but they won't do that much with it. And every time they lose the ball, it's going to look like they're in big trouble, which was the story of both games that we had. Like there's one that I've got on my channel where admittedly we were 4-0 up at the time, but they had the move where they were 2 yards away from our goal. We're on the ball, and they end up conceding a goal 8 seconds later, which shows you that even when you're attacking against a team that's good in transition, you could actually be at your most vulnerable. That's how we can catch them, and that'll play into Steve Cooper's terrible system pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I like how you plugged the video, because it's a very interesting watch. No, it is a very interesting watch. Same as Josh, we did a video. Me, Ant, and Josh did a video yesterday on his channel. I know that you did a playback stream as well this morning, Ragsy. Was it this morning or yesterday? This morning?
Yesterday morning, yeah.
Yesterday morning. And then obviously on this channel as well, we spoke with Martin, the Southampton fan, last night as well. So there's so much content. Just go and sample it, everyone, later on and listen to it all. But Josh, Ragsy, Southampton's team, as far as I'm aware, they're not expecting Adam Armstrong or Kyle Walker-Peters to start. They have been on the bench recently. Sacrifices made by Russell Martin, I'm not sure, but yeah, what do you make of that? Because it's a kind of similar situation, maybe under different circumstances, but it's a similar situation to us when you look at how We don't have Fatawu starting games, and we don't have Ricardo starting games. Kyle Walker-Peters was arguably the best right back alongside Ricardo last season, and he's not starting for them. So yeah, what do you make to
that? It sounds like last chance saloon, if I'm being honest, from Russell Martin, just to try and get a grip of his sides and I think he put the notion out there, like after the Bournemouth game, being like, well, if these players are coming into the team, they've got to fight. That's just should be the bare minimum, and he's right. And he's at least trying to bring in some heavily committed players that are at least going to put in the yards for him, so that they're not getting outdone by yards from the opposition, or outdone by pace, or outdone by work rate, or whatever. So, but then it's at the detriment of losing the quality. I don't think it's similar to what we're going through. I think it's a whole mishmash between different players. I think maybe you could argue it with Winks, and he hasn't really been pulling his weight. But for the sake of Fatawu, I mean, we're all sort of sitting here baffled as to why he's not being picked in the minute, but that's a whole different thing. But yeah, it's I think it just seems already kind of desperate measures from Russell Martin. It's not really a happy camp. I just feel like it's kind of how it's going along with company at Burnley. And I remember sort of like, I think we discussed it yesterday on our stream, that it could be that he's being persistent with his style to put himself in good stead for potential jobs in the future. And he's sort of like, oh, because he's so persistent, because he's really like stuck in his ways with this, he's really got confident with his idea that he could be an attractive suitor for jobs in the future. Maybe not necessarily a company going to Bayern Munich, but just at least to gain another Premier League job. But then that's to the detriment of Southampton. And really, like for Southampton's sake, like that's just really poor. It's because you're hindering players' development, and you're just putting them in a situation that they full well know they're not able to pull it off. So it's troubling times for them, and I just think we need to pick it apart. Basically.
Well, it's interesting you said, because I think it might have been you that commented that on my stream last night about is Russell Martin persisting with this, but it's interesting to see that Southampton are just going to pull the trigger. It does seem that way, that they are just going to sack him, which I thought maybe at the start of the season they might not do. But Anil, do you think that, I'm not saying that Russell Martin has that in mind at all times, what Ragsy said about, okay, look, I could get a job, a bigger club playing this way, but surely as a manager, he probably has looked at the company situation and thought, oh, I could be on something here. Because it's interesting, Martin, I actually spoke to him first 6 weeks ago, and he said something along the lines of, it's on YouTube, the receipts are there. He said that he thinks Russell Martin will manage Man City in the future. And I was like, oh, really? He didn't mention that last night. Maybe his opinion's changed. But do you see him as a manager that could manage playing that way at a bigger club?
I'll kind of reverse the question. You guys can answer this in a moment. But who would you prefer as the manager of Leicester City, Steve Cooper or Russell Martin? And the reason I bring this up, again, Anil the salesman plugging his video. But if you look at the style of play that Russell Martin tries to play, it's actually very progressive and very modern. Like he does things. He uses like a double box. He does a double inverted fullbacks. They do a 5-man attack when they go forwards. They try and do attacking patterns, etc., etc. The problem is they're getting absolutely killed because it's a very naive way to play with a team that on paper probably has one of the worst squads in the Premier League. So should you stick to it? But the thing is, throughout his career, Russell Martin, he did this at MK Dons. MK Dons never got promoted. I'm not sure they even ever got to the playoffs, but it was enough for people to catch notice of him. Ends up at Swansea, plays the same style at Swansea. People like, again, didn't get to the playoffs, didn't achieve much, gets the attention of Southampton, goes to Southampton. Finally, he's got the opportunity to maybe make it work with a team, and he just about squeaks it through and gets promoted. So perhaps there is something to be said there. I don't know. What I would say is, just examining him from a tactical point of view, there is a lot of stuff to like there. But I think you've got to say, results-wise, it's completely the wrong system to play for the team that they've got. So how stubborn are you? But that's why I offer it out you there, because we've got a better squad than Southampton on paper. And we're all against, the ogre, the dinosaur that we've got on the touchline. But are the ogre and tactics working? Or, do we want the fancy, attractive thing? So I would ask that back to you. I can't see him at Man City, but I could see someone taking a punt on him because I think there's a lot to like in terms of what he does. But I don't know. The proof is in the pudding. I think you do need to mix results with it.
Josh, I'm going to ask you the question. I'm going to forward Anil's question to you
Mhm.
about would you rather Cooper or Russell Martin? Because I actually don't know on this one, because we always say about, well, Company, Russell Martin, they play this way. It can work in the Premier League, but not with the players they have. But Southampton had the second, or if not third, best squad in the Championship last season. They finished fourth. They finished fourth, scraped through in the playoffs. They had very, very poor runs of form. They had one really good one as well, but they had poor runs of form. Would you take Russell Martin as manager of Leicester or not? Because I don't think I would.
It's tempting, isn't it? Because just based on last season, because it's similar to Maresca, but yeah, that thing about taking a punt on a manager, it's kind of what Chelsea did with Maresca, especially nowadays. There's managers who play that style more likely. So I probably would. If we're saying Russell Martin could have the whole summer along with Leicester all pre-season, make his signings, I'll probably lean more in favour. I'm quite split on it, but I think in terms of someone like Cooper, obviously, it's probably suits us better in terms of the squad we have. But I don't think our squad's actually that bad in terms. I think our squad's a lot better than the teams around us in terms of the depth and the first team quality. And someone like Russell Martin, I probably would say I probably would edge to Russell Martin. Yeah, I'll get off the fence.
Yeah, get off that fence, mate. You'll have splinters on your ass. Right. Let's talk a little bit more about Leicester. Just before we do so, Lee Chappie, I'm here watching from a poor 3G signal area at my lad's footy training. Thank you for the stream. Here's a question for you guys. Will he play both Steffi and Fats at the same time ever again? Ragsy, what are you thinking? This is a good question. We'll ask it now. We'll start getting into this weekend's team for Leicester. I think I know the answer to will they both play this weekend. I think the answer is no. But what are your thoughts on it? Do you think he should play them together this weekend or not?
Yeah, it absolutely should. I mean, we're all just crying out for it, and just like I think
you changed the winning side. Sorry to interrupt. You changed the winning side.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's just logical sense when it's not even a disrespect to IE, because I actually thought he was okay against Bournemouth. Like I think he was a focal point. It was decent hold of play. You're just looking at common sense, being like, who is likely to last the 90 minutes? And that's clearly Abdul Fatwi, because he's young, he's hungry, he's got a point to prove, he's got pace, he's got the stamina. And IU is 33. He just can't last at a whole 90 minutes at that intensity. So you'd rather have a starting team that can last and go the distance. So that's just point number one for it. And for the remit that IU's been brought in to do, supposedly by Cooper, I don't think he's fulfilling it. In terms of trying to help JJ and be tracking back and just being a bit more disciplined and stuff. I think, in the first half he did okay. It was a decent job at it, decent focal point. But then as soon as he starts to tire, you think he's just sort of run his course. And even after the Everton game, and you're going down his side, and KJJ's at fault, but you can sit here and argue he's actually not really getting a lot of protection. And you look to Mavididi and Fatwi from last season, they're not lazy players. They knew full well under Enzo's system that they had to track back, otherwise they're not going to play. And that's been drilled and instilled into them, and they're more than happy to do that for the sake of the team. So I just think it's this whole perception from the start that, because IU's older, because he's experienced, that he'll automatically do this over Fatwi, which is just clearly not the case. And had Cooper just seen what had happened from last season, like he said he would, then I think he would actually play them both together. It just made sense to us from last season. It made sense to Enzo, so surely it should make sense to him. I think eventually he could stumble upon the idea that, Mavididi and Fatwi, I like that. And then even though it's 2 months later, it might actually work. But yeah, not for this game. I think he'll just try and stick with a winning formula and keep the same team as possible.
Yeah, that's what I see happening. I'll come to you about the same topic in it, obviously, because Zaid said here, feel bad for Abdul. He 100% wasn't expecting to not start this season. I agree. no, I don't think any of us did. All of us thought it was almost like we were putting all our hopes, on Abdul Fattawu this season. And it's just, and to be fair to Cooper, you have to kind of see that his performances were average at best, Abdul, in the first couple of games, in my opinion. I know he got the assist against Tottenham first game, but for me, he needs to have a run of games. He needs to have time to adapt to the Premier League. Like, the Championship alone was a big step up for him because he'd only played at like youth level in Portugal, right? The Championship was a big step up. It took him time to adapt to the Championship. It wasn't until later on he started putting the numbers up. So now it's the same for the Premier League, right? He needs time.
Well, I agree. I think this is an interesting one. My opinion at the start of the season was that I thought the season would go a little bit like Cooper would get into trouble. And then maybe when it gets to like last chance saloon, he'd actually cave in and do what the fans wanted. And it might work. And then all of a sudden he'd be like, oh, okay, we'll keep this system. And sometimes you do see that with teams, that they sort of lock into their system that actually works. And then all of a sudden that takes it forward. Like, even in the title winning season, we started with Richie Delat and Jeffrey Schlupp as fullbacks. We got absolutely tonked by Arsenal. Then Ranieri's like, well, look, guys, do you mind if I change? And like, yeah, go on, boss, let's do it. And then we win the title because we keep the clean sheet. So sometimes you can luck into it. But weirdly, I don't think we will ever see them together. And the reason why I think this, and this is kind of sad, is that I think Cooper's in this sort of between a rock and a hard place where the squad is good enough that it can't go down. And therefore, he won't ever get into trouble enough that he has to play that team, if he makes sense. But equally frustrating, he'll never play the team that all the fans want to see because there'll never be a need to do it. So unless there's some sort of weird injuries thing. I will remind you, actually, he did try it against Shrewsbury, I think, but he did something mental with Mavadidi playing as the striker and Fattawu playing as the left fullback that pushed forward. So if he does get it working, it's not going to work in the way that you think it is. So I don't think we're ever going to see us go back to that 5-man attack and the 2 dynamic wingers going forward, which makes Anil make a sad face.
Well, Manny, Josh, has said he's still changing depending on the opposition too much. Expect Ndidi at 10 this weekend. I disagree with this. I actually don't think he will. I think he will stick with the Bournemouth, the team that beat Bournemouth. But what are your thoughts on it? Obviously, we'll move away from the wingers now. But Ndidi, do you maybe see? I think it all does come down to what the midfield situation is with players coming back from international duty. That's important because Ndidi's been away. He's had a bit of a fiasco, and Facundo Buonanotte doesn't get back until like Friday tomorrow. I think Friday. I think it is. He comes back. So let's just go off. Assuming everyone is fit, everyone is ready, do you see the same midfield, or do you think he might do something that is going to send us all into meltdown on Twitter on Saturday afternoon, which is play a midfield of Winks, Skip, and Ndidi, again with Ndidi in the 10? What are your thoughts on it all?
I think it all comes down to whether Winks starts or not, and I don't think he will. So in my opinion, we'll see Ndidi next to Skip, and then maybe see Buonanotte in the 10 again. Obviously, just like I said, if he's back or what. But yeah, I think it all depends on Winks really, and I can't really see him starting. I don't think the game suits Winks in terms of how Leicester are going to play the game with Southampton dominating the ball and whatnot, and obviously countering quite quickly. So no, I don't think we'll see that. And I think Cooper's got his first win. He got a clean sheet. Yes, it wasn't the best of performances, but we got the 3 points. So it would take a lot for him to change that, in my opinion. So yeah, I think it'd be the exact same as Bournemouth.
To be honest with you, I think Manny might have a bit of like he's been traumatized by Steve Cooper. He has a bit of PTSD. He's just so scared that Cooper's going to do something horrible. I honestly don't think he will bring Winks back into the team. What about you, Rugsy? Because I know you spoke with Manny yesterday morning. So yeah, do you agree with Manny? Do you think Winks will come back in?
No, I don't think so. I think unless if something like indeed he's not in the right headspace, which it could happen like they do, but I generally think when it comes to situations like, especially difficult situations like this, I think with players, they just want to like move on quickly, forget about it, and just get themselves back to playing so that they have something to focus their mind onto. He knows he's safe, he'll be all right. And I think he'll just stick with the same team. With Facundo, I think I'd assume that he'd actually be in the 10, like Josh is saying, but he was more on the right, and Jordan was in the 10, and being that sort of focal point. So then any sort of long balls that were going up, that he could be that sort of linchpin just to help us like be that focal point to get us into the game. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's in the 10 and like that sort of a fixed position. They could rotate between positions, of course. I think I'd like to see Facundo in the 10 and use Jordan as like a bit of a more of a pressing thing if he were to start. But yeah, I don't, unless if like Ndidi's out of the squad, then yeah, I imagine with Ndidi and Skip, like after the Bournemouth game, I thought, yeah, this is a step in the right direction, at least that he's actually got a midfield that was balanced and they're not all congested together, because like we're not playing 3 CDMs at this point. So yeah, got to keep that midfield. I think he will, just to be safe and try and see if he can keep this sort of winning team going.
Any chance of this happening, Anil? Bilal starting?
Given that you said that Buonanotte might be coming back late, I suppose there's the possibility. I think that's a big risk, though. I think he's a player with huge potential. I'd like to see him come into the team. But to be honest with you, this is one of those games where I don't even really care if it's a shit performance. I would take exactly what happened against Bournemouth, where I feel like it's 2 shots on target the whole match, but we win. Because I just think you win this game and there'd be an 8-point gap between us and Southampton. And I think if you've got that, that's one team that can't catch you. Get 2 more and you're done, right? And then we can look to what I really want this season to go like. I'm sure it's not going to go this way, but I don't want that stress of the final few weeks. You know, that season we went down, that I don't know about you, was not good for the mental health. Right, you just couldn't bear to watch games, and like I don't know whether like games that I would be watching behind the sofa, or I'd admit 1 or 2 games I didn't even watch live, and I was just like, I'll just check my phone at the end because surely we've beaten Southampton away and they've beaten us 1-0. You're like, fuck's sake, pardon the language.
That was
right.
bad.
I was at the cinema that evening, right, and it just couldn't handle it. So really, I'm just hoping that we're just like comfortably clear, and it's just like, oh. Panic? What panic? But I think I'm being a bit too optimistic. But yeah, if Buonanotte is coming back late, then Manny's already mentioned maybe he would move Ndidi to the 10. Maybe he would try Bilal. I think Bilal is getting a bit shirty that he's not been used at all. So there might be some pressures there to use it. But look, you said it yourself that like there's the old cliche if you don't change a winning team. And I think that's a pretty fair point. You don't really, not often.
Yeah, Christopher Newbury said, I can't see Buonanotte playing due to travel. Hope Elkanou starts, as this could be the perfect game to see him link play and thread those through balls. But now, we know that IU will play regardless. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it might be a good opportunity to get Bilal some game time, try and build a bit of confidence after the Everton game. But you could only see him playing safe. I think that's what you were probably getting at in Dan and L, because you were talking about how you don't care how we win. And how important it is to beat Southampton, the teams around us. I think Cooper might just go for the safe option. And if Facundo isn't fit or isn't able to play, I see Cooper's safe option as Ndidi, Skip and Winks. Personally, that's what I see as Cooper's safe option. So we'll see. Fatawi running down the wing. Abdul here, the Leicester. Yeah, 100%. I don't get why Cooper loves IU. There's a lot to talk. Watch Bobby Reed start, Zaid has said. Jesus Christ. The last position I want to talk about here are the fullbacks quickly. Let's just get through this. So obviously we've seen JJ and VK all season long. We've been crying out for Ricardo. Get those free Ricky P emojis in the chat, any members. But Josh, is there any chance, any miracle that we see Ricardo Pereira this weekend? Or is it just not even worth thinking about?
Justin rolls his ankle to win training, yeah. But apart from that, there's no chances to be fair. I'm not just as big as the fans, but in recent weeks, I think it's been quite good, to be fair.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's no chance. Hopefully, we could see him off the bench, maybe. But
would you drop VK though? Ragsy, I'll come to you. Drop VK and put Justin on the left, Ricardo on the right.
I think I preferably would, because I think the last couple of games, I think Christensen started to struggle in terms of like whether he needs to go or stay, and you're kind of seeing the same problems that JJ was experiencing at the start of the season with the Fulham game and with the Palace game as well. Like, and Christensen's coming with the same problems. So I think like preferably I would like to see. I think you just got to try and squeeze Ricardo in just for the technical aspects that he brings, for like the tackles, the interceptions, just the sense of play, the fact that he can take every game by the scruff of the neck. And like, it's one of my favourite players. And he's a club, like, I think he stated that yesterday, he's a club legend for me in my eyes. I know that gets thrown around a lot these days, but like for the loyalty to commit to us just to try and get us back in the Premier League and to be treated like this, I think is just absolutely disgraceful, to be honest with you. And even if he's not starting, just look to him if you need to shut a game down, or just like if you just need to replenish some energy into the squads. And he's just a character that's, you know, worn the captain's armband and like can be vocal and give the instructions and lay it on thick to the rest of the defenders, which is something that we do need in that back line still. So I would. I'd probably stick with. I'm not going to go ape shit if he still sticks with VK over the next couple of games and stuff. But I think if, you know, we're still not really seeing any more from VK and he's still struggling, then I would definitely be reconsidering just to try and trial Ricardo at left back.
Anil, give me the final word on this topic. Now, Manny says the fullback of JJ and VK come as a pair, and if you want to free Ricky, you'd need a third centre back. Somebody also said, Christopher said, don't get me wrong, love me some Ricky P, but JJ is unstoppable and VK has been solid. Now, I actually find the VK situation very split. Like, I see half the fan base saying they really like him and saying that they think he's doing quite well, and I see the other half who think he's shit. So what do you think it is? Again, I know we always think it's the system, but from what we have seen of him, would you rather drop him or would you rather keep him?
I would rather drop him. I think he comes across as a nice guy, hardworking pro. I think he's got some assets, but I've analysed some of the games recently, and I think there are actual issues that he's causing by being in the team. And what I'm expecting, I don't know if it'll be this game, whether it could be, because Southampton's Tyler Dibbling is really looking like quite, a breakout star for them. But if not him, my prediction will be at some point during the season, some winger is absolutely going to rinse him. And it's going to be extremely obvious to everyone that he's going to need to be changed. And then you know what's going to happen? He's probably going to put Luke Thomas in instead. So get prepared for that reality. But the reason why, very specifically, why I think some people, they do like what he's doing. But I think if you look at it on a more complex level, like Fair Play Ragsy just mentioned this, is like he's getting confused as when he needs to stay and when he should go.
Yeah.
But also when we're trying to build out from the back, what I've noticed that when he receives the ball, he receives it a bit clunkily. His first touch isn't the best, which puts him into trouble. So it means that he's getting pressurized and he's not as good as playing it out from the back. And also when he receives it under pressure, it's causing problems as well. So sometimes what I basically have seen is when we're trying to build out from the back, when he's not involved, it's very smooth. But when he is involved, he has a tendency just to launch it because he's not good enough to keep the ball under tight spaces and play it out. And I think that was his detriment. If he'd have stayed with Enzo last season, he would have got good at that. And he would actually probably be pretty solid in the team. And that's why I think he might come into trouble. So let's see. But yeah, as I say, that's my prediction. At some point, he's going to get rinsed. And then the question will be asked for him, I think. And then it'll be Luke Thomas in instead.
Yeah, Luke Thomas does give me nightmares, I think, actually. I've got one memory ingrained in my mind for the rest of my life, which was Luke Thomas up against Nicolas Pepe. Like, I don't even remember when it was, like 2022 or something like that. And it was the worst thing I have ever seen in my life. And yeah, so anyway, that's where my trauma comes from. Right, everyone in the chat, start getting your score predictions in now for the game. I'm going to go around the panel. So, Ragsy, to you first, mate. I want score prediction for Leicester Southampton.
Oh, I just know as soon as I go bold, it's going to backfire right in my face. I was like, I've got to do it. No, it's 3-1. 3-1 win. And I believe, and I know it's premature, that if we do end up winning against Southampton, we're beating Forest in the derby. I don't give a shit. That's it. But yeah, I think Dibbling will probably score. But then, I think we can they're literally they're set up for us to, they just, I think Anil might have sort of mentioned this earlier, but like how they progress the ball, they're too slow at doing it. And like they have all their sort of players in just sort of retreat to help in the build up. And because like the opposition then retreat back, it's then harder for them to break through and get into the final third. Like, I think if we just set up with even just position our players high up the pitch, and if Pupin just instill some belief, like we played against in the first half against Palace, like we played against the first half against Bournemouth, we can pick them off. Like this should be Cooper's dream, man. Like this, it's actually play them. Like 3-1.
Well, so before I come to you, Josh, something to note is that of Cooper's 2 away wins in the Premier League with Forest, one of them was Southampton. So there we go. That bodes well. Josh, score prediction.
I think we'll get it going on Saturday. I think we'll have loads of chances. I don't think we'll score loads. I think we'll win 2-0. It's like the most confident I've been about any game so far. But no one knows it'll probably be 1-0 Southampton win it. But yeah, I'll go 2-0 Leicester. I think we'll score quite early. Southampton, there'll be a bit of a toxic atmosphere. Then we'll probably get not toxic, but you know what I mean. And then we'll grab a goal towards the end just to wrap it up nicely.
I'm not used to this positivity. What is going on? I just need Luke here from Leicester City Down Under to throw me back in the pits of hell. And Nil, mate, score prediction.
I'm on the optimistic bandwagon. I'm going for 2-1. Ragsy called it right. I think the way that Southampton set up and play, this should be on paper the match that's ideally suited to the system that Steve Cooper is playing, because they're trying to play like Man City, but with the quality of Southampton. And so that's why it should make all those things work a bit more. The only thing I just want to add is that only once, he did it twice actually last season, but once Russell Martin changed from his 4-2-3-1 to play 3-5-2, and he did that against Leeds, and he did that in the most important game of his career, which was the playoff final where they had less possession but they went through. The only reason I'm bringing this up is that this is probably the second most important game in Russell Martin's career, because I agree. I think if he was to get beaten, and especially if he gets beaten heavily, I think he's out of a job. And if that's the case, he might play desperation because like a point is better than having nothing at all. So if it's 3-5-2, all of a sudden that's a bit of the cat amongst the pigeons. But otherwise, look, I think we've still been, despite the underlying data, if you look at it from the eye test, there's actually still quite a lot that's good about Leicester. And I think given that we've got the confidence of a win, the way that they're set up, I think on paper, I know that games aren't played on paper, it should mean a win for Leicester. So 2-1 to the Foxes.
I'm happy to say that's 4 wins because I'm also going for a 2-1 Leicester win. That is my first. I said it on Josh's.
We've jinxed it, lads.
Night. Well, yeah, hope not. But this is my first win prediction.
Peril.
Oh, yeah, Foxes. Then this time next week we could be sat here not in a very good way. But
the channel's going to be shut down.
Yeah, well, it'll be demonetized at the very least, that's for sure. So, and remember this as well, people. Monday night phone in, Monday night call in. We'll be back on Monday after the game. I'm going to come to the score predictions in the chat in just 1 second. Where is what I'm looking for? 1 second. No, I've lost it. Anyway, okay, over to the comments. There's loads of score predictions, so we'll start getting through them. Zaid says 3-1 Leicester. Leicester Fox says 2-1, I believe. Chester and Calibbo both saying 1-1. Jonathan 2525 says 2-0 to Leicester. Sean says 3-1 to us, but if it's 1-0 Southampton, then sack him on the touchline before full time. Love it. Kabas says 2-2. We'll score the first 2 goals after them fucking about with the ball at the back. 2-0 Cooper. 2-0 Cooper coward mode kicks in, allowing them to score 2. Love it. Christopher says 3-0 Vardy hat trick with huge shithouse streak towards Russell Martin. Leicester Fox says, except if Mads has a crazy game, we will concede. Dawn says if I'll go 2-1 to us. Truly Ethan says 2-1. Clemo said they're the worst team in the Prem with a manager who plays the exact same way every week. 3-0 or bust. And I think that's it. Manny says 2-1 to the Leicester. And Truly Ethan says he'd actually go 4-0 if Atawu starts. Can you, Josh, you see any chance of a 4-0 Leicester win, mate? Any chance of that? What do you reckon the odds are for that, eh?
It's tempting, isn't it?
It is tempting, mate.
I'd be about 10-1, wouldn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, 100%. Right, so just a reminder, this Saturday, Matchday Live is back starting from 2:45. I'll be joined by Luke and Anil. So for Fox 8 TV and Leicester Down Under. And then obviously the watch along from 3 o'clock onwards. Anil and Luke, and maybe Neil, who knows, if he just magically appears out of nowhere, maybe he'll be on at half time. And then, of course, there'll be a live redirect over for Fox 8 TV for the instant match analysis. Also, again, as we just mentioned, the live call-in will be back on the Monday. Thank you. Before we go, sorry, Josh, what's coming up on Sports over the next few days, mate?
Yeah, I've got a video on Buonanotte coming out hopefully tomorrow. So just a little bit of analysis on him because I think he's been our best player. Then obviously I'll be at Southampton on Saturday. So hopefully the first away win of the season vlog.
100%. Anil over on for Fox 8 TV. Plug again for the 4th time. No, I'm joking. We are live on for Fox 8 TV, so it's not really a plug. So yeah, go on, mate.
The aforementioned tactical analysis video. Yeah, you can see where I think the possible flaws are in Russell Martin's system, and otherwise I'll be doing match day live review, and the instant match reaction, which is actually my favorite, depending on either victory or defeat, is very contrasting emotions.
Nice one. Ragsy over on Talk Leicester City and of course Foss Hub as well.
Yes, so we've got a match preview coming up with one of the Southampton fans as well. I believe he's on your channel as well, so yeah, stay tuned for that. And so that's coming up I believe on Friday. Just tune in on playback if you want to come and join in the chat, then absolutely more than welcome to. And live stream of the game. We've been streaming along with watch along, hopefully in the brighter moods than what we have been in the past few weeks this season. But let's just pray and hope in it. And then so come and catch us on there on playback on Fosshead's channel.
Lovely stuff. Thanks again to everyone who's got their comments in, and make sure to hit the like button and make sure to hit subscribe on both Blue Tinted Glasses and for Fox 8 TV. And I will see you tomorrow for another video at some point. Cheers all. Thanks. See you next time. Bye-bye.